Welcome back to the GCSEMathsPro YouTube channel. Today's video is on the most common EDEXCEL questions that you will find on indices for higher tier. So, starting off with the easier ones, there's often a question 1 which is to do with indices. This one is more so to do with index laws. So we've got here, simplify m cubed times m to the power of 4. That's the first index law where when you've got a multiplication symbol, we have to add the powers. So that is simply just m to the power of 7. The next one is then simplify 5n p cubed and then all of that cubed. This is the one that can trip some students up a little bit more because they don't necessarily know what to do. They know it's maybe the third index law, which is where you multiply the powers, but they don't always know how to apply that when there's multiple parts inside of the brackets. You just have to take it a piece at a time. So we are taking this cube and we are cubing all 3 parts inside the brackets. Now, that doesn't mean we're doing 5 times 3, that's often the common mistake. No. Technically, that is 5 to the power of 1, n also to the power of 1, and then obviously the p cubed. All of that cubed, so you see how we'd be multiplying not the 5 by 3, but the power of 1 by 3. So that would be the same as writing 5 cubed, obviously then n cubed, and p to the power of 9. Now, in this case, because 5 cubed is actually a number, you'd have to work that out. So 5 cubed is 125, obviously then you've got n cubed, p to the power of 9. That's how you would apply the power of 3 to all of the parts inside the brackets. Now, part C, we've got this fraction that we need to simplify. So, first of all, we've actually got 2 coefficients. 32 and 4, don't get this mixed up, are just numbers. They're not powers, there's nothing to do with powers there. Those two are just literally numbers in a fraction, and a fraction means divide. So for the first bit, we just need to divide 32 by 4, which is obviously then 8. Then, the next 2 terms, Q and R, do involve powers, so that's where we would use our second index law, which is to subtract the powers when they're telling us to divide. So work through it, column by column. Q to the power of 9 divided by Q to the power of 3. If we subtract the powers, is q to the power of 6. And then if we do the same for the r, this is also a bit of a trick question because r at the bottom is not to the power of 0, is it? Just because you can't see the power doesn't mean it isn't there. It's just effectively 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3. So our answer is 8, q6, r3. So in the case of part B and part C, just work through it term by term, piece by piece. Okay, second question is very similar to the one we just did. We've got to simplify 3x to the power of 5, y to the power of 6, and then all of that to the power of 4. It's basically exactly the same question. So if you already feel like you know what to do, then obviously pause the video, give it a go first. So again, we've got this 3, which is technically to the power of 1, x to the power of 5, and y to the power of 6. All of that is to the power of 4. So I need to multiply my powers. This is the index law number 3, where you multiply powers. So that would be 3 to the power of 4, because 1 times 4 is obviously 4. X, 5 times 4 is 20, to the power of 20. And y, 6 times 4 is 24. Now, as we said before, 3 to the power of 4 is both numbers. You can actually work that out. So they would expect you to write that as 81. X to the power of 20, y to the power of 24. Piece by piece. Okay, this one looks a bit more complicated because there's a lot more going on. However, we are still working with index laws. We just need to break it down. So let's look at the numerator first. We've got the exact same question again with the brackets and we're going to be squaring this time. So here we need to do, obviously that's currently 6 to the power of 1, so that would be 6 to the power of 2, which is obviously 6 squared, 36. X, 5 times 2 is 10. And y, 3 times 2 is 6. That's the numerator. The denominator is our first index law where we're multiplying, so we add powers. However, again, 3 and 4 in this case are just coefficients, they're just numbers, they're not powers. So those two we are actually going to multiply just as normal, and then we'll deal with the index law part when we get to the x and the y. So that would be 12. X, we need to add the powers. 2, this is technically a 1 here, isn't it? It's not 0, so that would be 3, x to the power of 3. And then y, we've got 7 plus minus 3. Now, we are adding, but obviously this works just the same as normal adding negative numbers. That would technically become 4, y to the power of 4. Now for our final step, we can then deal with the fraction, because as you can see, they've asked us to give it in this specific format, which is no longer a fraction. So we're going to be dividing column by column. The 36 and 12 are just normal numbers. So those we are literally just going to divide. 36 divided by 12 is obviously 3. Next column. X to the power of 10 divided by x to the power of 3. Now that's where we can employ our index law, which is when we divide, we actually subtract powers. So 10 minus 3 is 7. Final column, exactly the same. Subtract the powers. 6 minus 4 is 2. So our answer is 3x to the power of 7, y to the power of 2. It's just all of the index laws bundled into one question. Okay, now we've got another question which is broken up into multiple parts, but we're now looking at fractional powers and negative powers. So first of all, write down the value of 36 to the power of a half. This is obviously a non-calculator question. You can't just type it into your calculator. So what we need to know is that a fractional power is some kind of root, and that depends on the denominator of the fraction. So in this case, the denominator being 2 obviously means square root. You can also probably assume that because it's a square number as well. They're not going to make you square root or even cube root any numbers that are not square or cube numbers in the first place, okay? They're not going to make you work out decimals. So that one is literally just 6. Part B is a very common question I've noticed. It might not necessarily be the number 23, but in terms of the fact that they'll ask you something to the power of 0. And it's a bit of a trick question. You have to remember anything to the power of 0 is 1, it's not 0. Anything, any number, any letter to the power of 0 is always 1. So I've seen them throw in this trick question quite a few times. Just make sure that you remember, because that is such an easy mark to get. Okay, part C. Work out the value of 27 to the power of negative 2/3. So we've got the same scenario as before, a fraction, but also a negative. You can deal with the fractional power first or the negative first, it's up to you. I like to deal with the negative first because I feel like otherwise I'll probably forget. So a negative power is where we take the reciprocal. Taking the reciprocal is where you flip a fraction upside down. Obviously not the 2/3, right? The actual base. Now you're obviously thinking, well, 27 isn't currently a fraction. Any whole number, the reciprocal is 1 over that number. Because 27 as a fraction is technically 27 over 1. If you did 27 divided by 1, it's still 27, isn't it? That's the same thing. So the reciprocal is then 1 over 27. That is the negative part. You don't have to worry about that anymore. That's already there. Now, the fractional power, this time we've got not only a denominator, we've also got a numerator that's obviously bigger than 1. Always do the denominator first. You have to. The denominator, as we said before, is some kind of root. In this case, cube root. So I'm cube rooting that fraction. And then the numerator you just apply as a normal power at the end. So you might be thinking, well, how do I cube root a fraction? Well, that's the same as just cube rooting both numbers, the numerator and the denominator, okay? Just cube root them separately. So obviously the cube root of 1 is 1. That normally is just 1. Whatever you've done to a 1, it's normally a 1 answer. The cube root of 27, as I said, they won't make you cube root anything that is not already a cube number. So you should know this. You should have this memorized. The cube root of 27 is 3. Now, don't forget the 2. We need to square the fraction, which again means square the numerator, square the denominator. So 1 squared is obviously 1. 3 squared is 9. Okay, so you just have to work through it step by step, and then you'll get there. Okay, very similar questions again. So, find the value of 81 to the power of negative a half. Well, you might just remember it from the previous one. Half means square root, and negative means reciprocal. So, the reciprocal is obviously 1 over 81. And then the power of a half means square root. Again, just square root the top and the bottom separately, so that's 1 over 9. The next one, part B, is a little bit harder just because we've also got a fraction as the denominator as well, so there's just a little bit more to deal with. So we've got 64 over 125 to the power of 2/3. So first of all, we'll deal with the denominator. That's the type of root. So cube root. And this one, they've used 64. Don't get mixed up because obviously 64 is a square number as well, but it is also a cube number. So don't think, oh, I need to square root that one and cube root the second one. No. We're cube rooting both. Cube root of 64, again, you should have this memorized, is 4. cube root of 125 is 5. And then the 2 that was there in the numerator, you just apply as a normal power of 2, normal square. So we're going to square 4, which is 16, and square 5, which is 25. So 16 over 25 is your answer. Okay, so this is now kind of combining them together. Not only do we need to work out each of these individually, we also then need to add them at the end. So work out the value of 27 to the power of 2/3 plus a half to the power of -3. So I'm going to deal with them separately first. 27 to the power of 2/3, we obviously need to cube root first and then square it second. So cube rooting would give us 3 squared is 9. The second one, we've got a half to the power of -3. The negative means reciprocal. That would technically become 2 over 1. But in other words, we could obviously just write that as 2, couldn't we? And then the 3 just as normal. So 2 cubed is 8. So don't forget at the end that we actually need to add them. 9 plus 8, which is obviously then just 17. 3 marks. So those are some of the most common EDEXCEL indices questions. If you feel like you've tackled those and you're doing higher tier and you're looking for an 8 or a 9, definitely check out then the hardest EDEXCEL indices questions, which is in the next video. So thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, make sure to like and subscribe and leave down below any questions or comments that you might have.